Gift Mukadzi. I am the Smme GP Provincial Chairperson. I also serve in my private capacity as the CIO of Destiny Business Science. We are an ICT service provider. We focus on seed management, ICT solutions, app development, and we also have a skills development portfolio. But mine today is to mainly moderate. I will be working together with my fellow executive in the province, Comrade Flo Mushala, who will mainly be running with it. I'll be assisting on the back end so that, it's not just the testosterone-filled environment, and we have capable cadres who are females who can, show industry what things are all about. But in line with POPIA requirements, we need to inform you that the session today will be broadcast live via our YouTube stream, and we will also be recording this session. So kindly note that the session is being recorded. So with that, out of view, just by order of, to give you as a format of how today will proceed, we will be having firstly—
Recording in progress.
We will firstly have our National SG, Comrade William Ledwaba, who will just give us an overview of the PBICT, because it is under the PBICT umbrella that today's session was put together. And we will then have a Comrade Tavan Jafta speaking and presenting. After that, Comrade Smme Mafu will do his presentation. And then lastly, we will have Comrade Mitesh, who will then take over. After that, we will then have a panel discussion. We were supposed to also be joined by Mr. Stephen Moses. However, unfortunately, he couldn't join us due to a family emergency that has just come up. But with that said, I'm going to hand over to our SG, Comrade William Ledwaba. SG, the floor is yours. If you can present, you can present, or you'll be able to share the screen now, and then take us through just a quick overview of the PBICT, and then we can jump into the order of the day. And then after that, I'll hand over to Comrade Flo. And then when we get to the panel discussion, I'll assist Comrade Flo to discuss that, and then I'll close by giving a vote of thanks at the end of the program. Over to you, SG.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, SG. Yes, we can.
All right. Okay. So it's key to check if people can hear you or are with you. One of the basic presentation skills I've learned during this lockdown, that to avoid talking alone, you need to check on your audience all the time. But anyway, thank you for inviting us and for establishing this platform, for us to engage and discuss the matters of national importance, especially when it comes to SMMEs, professionals, and even youth in ICT. My task is very simple. I'm just going to be introducing PBICT. What is PBICT? What do we do? And why PBICT for this specific platform? Actually, a few days ago, when we were brainstorming with a secretariat, we took a very resolution to say we want to start taking action. So meaning that we are no longer just going to sit in boardrooms, because obviously, we used to do that long time ago and discuss what are the plans, what do we need to do to empower SMMEs, what do we need to do to start, going out there. And the decision was very clear that we need to start doing more. We need to start showing, things that we can do, our capabilities, instead of just talking. So for now, I'm just going to introduce what is PBICT, what do we do, and why must we get involved and all those sort of things. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, SG, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So, and one of the other things we adopted was the Smme revolution. And SME revolution is actually something that has been around for some time. However, we take it to another level. So who's PBICT? We were launched in May 2017 due to trade port. Today we have plus 3,000 members across South Africa. We are the fastest growing organization in ICT as far as we're concerned. And also, SMMEs, professionals, and even youth in ICT and women as well. I mean, you can count them in numbers according to our stats. We have structures across all provinces, from Port to Western Cape. We also have cooperatives. Today a cooperative is actually hosting this platform, for SMMEs to engage in the value chain of ICT. So those are the kind of things that we've been involved in on the ground, and we're actually taking them. Those are go-to-market platforms that we can use, to get one another together. How do we collaborate with one another? So cooperatives play that role as well. I mean, we've been in the industry challenging all these unjust policies that the government has been, imposing on SMMEs. Most of them are actually legacy policies. That were established during the apartheid, but obviously our government just needed to be more aggressive. So we're pushing them. We push through different legislatures. We presented policies and in parliament as well, through different media platforms. So we've been out there, fighting for all these unjust policies that excluding SMMEs, excluding professional, excluding youth, excluding even women in the ICT sector. We're also represented through different boards. And for example, we are represented in the 4IR Industrial Commission through our president. We're also represented in the BBICT ICT Council, where I sit in there, to ensure that the BEE policies that have been set by government, as far as ICT is concerned, they are in line with what we see on the ground, with what our SMMEs are experiencing, with what our youth and professionals are experiencing. And we've been fighting a very, very, very difficult battle out there, but we are there representing our members and the ICT people as a whole. And different engagement with OEMs, government, you name them in terms of, I can tell you now today with our engagement with Microsoft, this is just a platform that is currently happening in Eastern Cape, where you have Microsoft engaging in what they call SMME Partner Program, where they're actually sponsoring a program where they want to certify SMMEs to be silver certified, to be a gold certified, so that they can be able to participate in the value chain of Microsoft. We've been fighting for that, so that there is that level of inclusion, especially those previously disadvantaged SMEs. And we want to put through all the OEMs, not just Microsoft, even others. But today platforms will also seek, that relationship with hyperscalers, because it speaks about data centers. What is the value chain of data center? How can a youth participate? How can even women participate? How can professionals participate in such a value chain as well? But it starts with infrastructure. And I think the discussion of today, it's very key, and it's very important that we get it right. Something that I just want to tell you that, while we discuss today, and I'm planting a seed in terms of all the technologies that are available in the market, and that's what PBICT took the resolution, that we want to start spreading our wings and explore all these capabilities that are there, all these opportunities that are there within the science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's that STEAM thing. But however, when you go deeper into it, you'll see that, from agriculture side of things, there are opportunities, to technology, to engineering. Technology, basically, we're talking all the sort of things that everyone is talking about them now. They're just talking about them. So we want to start doing something. So not just to say we have robotics discussion, we have a drone discussion, we have a big data discussion, we have a cloud computing discussion. But what about cloud computing discussion? And that's what the topic of today will seek to address, to say, this about cloud computing discussion. We are establishing a platform that SME start engaging and can start actually creating that value chain. And then obviously go take it further in terms of who do you want to partner with? Who are your key stakeholders for this particular platform? what is in it for me as if I'm going to be an investor or whatnot. As an SMME, obviously, in the past couple of months, in Tabeling, the CEO of the newly going to be established bank, YW something, I just forgot the, when she started the movement, I bought the shares, by the way, of $1,000 in that bank. I bought them. I didn't care whether I'm going to lose it or not. I just say, you know what, this is a nice innovation by women. So I'm going to buy them anyway, whether I lose my money or not. And I'll see further what's going to happen. So it's that starting. It's that, a leg in that we need for people to start doing. And without even thinking deeper about it, that, well, we're going to lose money. Yes, any investment, you're going to lose money. But I was so inspired by that to say, people start, taking themselves out of the procurement space, that we always fight in with your CETAs, with your government, but however, we start playing out there. I mean, I know that CEDA, for example, Teven, you guys are doing a lot in terms of empowering the youth out there who have innovation and all that. But there is an element of people afraid to start. They just think that, I'm going to start and fail because I don't have a leg up, I don't have a support, I don't have that community of people that I can partner with, community of people that can support me. But PBICT is a community, and it's about time that we start creating and using that community to our best. Otherwise, we're going to think 10 years from now and wish we didn't waste this opportunity. So I just wanted to state that as well, to say, while we discuss today and innovate and present, let's plant all these seeds, that there's a whole lot of value chain, comrades. Yesterday, we were discussing animation, gaming, film, with one of the actors who used to act in Generation Tattoo. And the way he was explaining how, his journey to date and the opportunities that are available. And he said to us, you know what, I want to partner with PBICT for all the programs. Now he's doing initiatives where he's actually partnered with other stakeholders to certify the youth of this country in animation, gaming, and all those sort of things. So those are the things that we want to start doing as well. And there's a lot that we can do. So I can go to my next slide. And I know that, we need collaboration, we need partners, we need a community, and in this case, we can create that. We can go out there in the industry as well, professionals, because professionals are the people who are actually the engine of this country. They are certified. You have people who have the knowledge and the know-how of doing things. So it's key that we put this community of people together, and that is why with PBICT we always talk about professionals. Because we know that without professionals, the labor market, because, these people they do that for a living. They understand the key requirements of and their subject matter as well. As an entrepreneur, you may think differently, but for someone who's committed to his role as a professional, is very different. Government sometimes, and I was presenting in another platform where I was saying, let's forget about government, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a very, very, very long battle, and that battle requires us to be strong and all that. So I don't think we have time to keep fighting government all the time, because government can change even tomorrow. So it's about time we start doing things on our own. Comrade, my slide is going to end here. I'm not here to preach or to present things that are not also on the agenda. But I wish you good luck with your platform. On behalf of PBICT and myself as the Secretary General, I say that you can have a lovely program. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Comrade Chair. I'll be handing over to Comrade Flo.
Good morning, comrades. Can you hear me?
Morning, Comrade. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Thank you, Comrade Will, for your introduction. And now our next.
So please turn your camera.
Pardon? Let's see.
Turn your camera. We see the room, not you.
Let me sort it out.
There you go,
I'll sort it out. Okay. Then our next speaker is Mr. Tevin. Mr. Tevin Jafta. You can from SIDA. So you can go ahead, Mr. Tevin.
Good morning, Program Director. Good morning, Comrade Chair and Comrade SG. Thank you for the opportunity. Program Director, can you allow me to share my screen, your screen, please? I think whilst we're sorting out that, thank you so much, comrades and colleagues, for the opportunity. I think it's we appreciate this opportunity as the Small Enterprise Development Agency to be with you this morning. We hope that it's going to be one of many opportunities for us to be able to share where our thinking is in terms of the digital transformation, but also what we think, how do we need to reshape the South African economy, and how do we need to transform the South African economy, specifically when it comes to small, medium, and micro enterprises, which is our core mandate, but also how do we transform it so that we also displace certain cartelish behaviors that we've seen in the system. Okay. Comrades, I still can't share.
DSG and SG, please assist there.
Thank you so much. Like the SG indicated, I just want to make sure that I have all the protocols in place. Can you see my screen? And can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, Comrade Jafta.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much again. I'm going to try and go to my presentations quite quickly. There's a few anchoring content that I think it's important for colleagues and comrades to be aware of in terms of our plan for the next 3 years. And then I think the rest is just where we are going. I think, like the SG has indicated, we're moving away from just talking, because talking is not changing the narrative. Talking is not changing the discourse, and it's not changing where the economy is going. So we are moving beyond talking, and we are now in a very strong implementation phase that we need colleagues to be able to help us to be able to do what we intend to do. So let me start with the SIDA customer value proposition and our what we call our service flow, so that colleagues can just see and comrades can see what we are planning to do and what we are doing currently. So if you look at this slide gives you a perspective on how to develop an SMME and how do you provide a range of support interventions to be able to anchor and structure a venture so that the market can't disqualify. The market can't disqualify. You need to close all the gaps, and that is what we're trying to do as the Small Enterprise Development Agency. Colleagues are familiar and comrades are familiar that our shareholder is the Department of Small Business Development. So that is our shareholder. And we also do extensive work for the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. We also do some extensive work for the Department of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. So within the economic cluster, we are the anchor agency that drives enterprise development for the economic cluster. On the top end of our business model, you will see that our interventions are very structured. So it's not just once-off interventions, but in our interventions moves from assessment right to where we monitor and evaluate the growth of the enterprise within a supply chain opportunity, okay, or within a market segment. So that is our core. We want to see multi-million rand firms and multi-billion rand firms. And in the tech and innovation space, we want to see unicorns emerging in the South African economy, specifically in the tech space. And we think it's possible. And I will share some of our thinking and what we are planning to do. So on the top end is our branches and co-location points, our network that provides a range of support services to entrepreneurs close to where they are in districts, in municipalities, local municipalities, metros. So we have a range of touch points for an entrepreneur, whether you're in the tech space or in any other sector where you can go to and you will get a range of business development services in the main. Then I'm responsible mainly for the SEDA technology side of SEDA's business. And I'm also responsible for the department's incubation program and the national incubation program, accelerator program. So digital hubs, clusters, and we're currently managing the ICT cluster, where we have all the incubators, the MNOs, the OEMs, where we're discussing certain opportunities and how enterprise development can drive change within the supply chains. So I'm responsible for that, and within that we follow a very structured continuum where we transition the business over between 1 year to 3 years of structured interventions. I'm also responsible for the conformity assessment side, and comrades, this becomes very important. For many, many years, I've been preaching this message that this is the one area that hampers our growth and what corporates are using to keep us out of their supply chains. They will say to you that your product or service don't meet the requirements of what their supply chain or what their supply chain dictates, or what their product within their product value chain. They will say to you that your product is not tested, it's not certified, it can't meet the requirements. And this is not just in South Africa, comrades, it's also globally, where TBTs are used, or where conformity assessment broadly is used as a technical barrier to trade. And that is what we're trying to resolve. And that's why we've put as SEDA a range of incentives there to make sure that this conformity assessment can't be used as a TBT anymore. And we meet all we allow our SMMEs, our tech startups to meet all the technical requirements, what the market requires or what global supply chains require. And I want to quickly tell a story of a tech startup that was providing, that was in a supply chain program for one of the big MNOs. I'm not going to mention the MNO, but so they were there for a year, very capable female entrepreneur, structured. She was very sharp. She was an engineer by profession. But all the things that was given to her while she was in the program of this MNO was training on telephone etiquette, how to do these funny things, and she was not really given access to the core supply chain, which she was more than capable of doing. And the MNO was still importing some of the things that she could do and locally manufacture from India. So, and when we ask, what is the reason why this capable young person are not allowed into the core supply chains, we were told, no, she together tries to do is to make sure that no conformity assessment barrier, no conformity assessment requirement will become a barrier to our SMMEs anymore. The second one is technology transfer. So here is how do we transfer product or process technology product? Yeah. So, and then also what we're dealing here with is the issue of equipment, whether it's capital equipment acquisition that enables them, and we have an incentive for that, which I'll share with you now, and then intellectual property. So how do we make sure that we protect our intellectual property rights? Even though in ICT and digital, and I think corporates will be aware of this, tech moves so fast that it's very difficult for you to protect your intellectual property. Yeah, that's why in other jurisdictions like Silicon Valley, they don't do not really promote IP protection. But here in South Africa, one of the things we want to do is to promote IP protection so that we can protect intellectual property, but also use it as a revenue generator for a innovator. And then, so we have a range of incentives there, and then we have a range of incentives in terms of the innovation support, where we want to make sure that we take some of the innovation that sits within our science councils, our universities, that are just lying there on shelves, and we give it to entrepreneurs to take to market. And a typical example where we have really shot ourselves in the foot as this country is on EV, or battery operated cars. Whilst the world is now moving into cars, and we're seeing companies like Google, Amazon, and all the other companies having their own, Apple also now launching their own EV, South Africa has been in this space for very, very long. In fact, some of our technology has been exported to the US. And we know, and colleagues will be aware, and comrades will be aware, that we had to do the South African battery operated car. But that car is standing in a warehouse, where South Africa has invested billions of rands into that technology. And if you look at the battery plant that has been developed on lithium-ion batteries, also in the Western Cape, it's standing. Yet we have entrepreneurs that can be given these opportunities, this IP, and take it to market. So we don't complain anymore. We now have what we call an IP matching platform, where we look at this IP, we match it to the entrepreneur, and we take it to market, and we support them to make sure that we take the deal. If I can use the deal as an example, how do we take the deal to market, and not let the deal stand in a warehouse where we could have been, we could have been before Tesla. We could have had our own car, and maybe we could have even exported some of it, and we could have had now our own battery operated car. Nevertheless, we see that as an opportunity for us to do things differently going forward. My department is also responsible for the new Startup Nation framework. So we also believe that we need to support startups differently. Within the PC4IR that I had the pleasure of serving with your president, one of the things that we picked up was the issue of how do you support startups, specifically tech startups, within the 4IR space differently. And we advocated for the establishment of a risk capital fund and a sovereign wealth fund. Because the problem that we have in South Africa is, one, our VC ecosystem is not transformed. Secondly, we don't have early stage risk capital. That early stage risk investment that government can cushion using its sovereign. So that is one of the things that we are also advocating. And I think within the capital markets work stream, within the PC4IR, where myself and the president sit in, we really advocated for the establishment of a risk capital fund that can take that early stage risk into tech startups in particular. So this new framework that our minister has tasked me to really champion is the issue of how do you bring those things that is in concept documents, in frameworks, in policy, how do we bring it to life? How do we make it real? How do we really create an ecosystem that allows for tech startups to be funded differently than what other entrepreneurs are funded? And like I said, we as a division, we don't do all these things alone. We work quite closely with your technical infrastructure institutions, your SMMEs, your SANAs, your NRCS, your NMESs. We also work quite closely with universities and science councils, with the Technology Innovation Agency, which is our core agency and our core partner, and science councils. And then very importantly is our new financial regime. I think colleagues will be familiar that within SEDA, we also have, or within the Department of Small Business Development, we also have an entity called SIFA, Small Enterprise Finance Agency. And I think there's a lot of work that is going into on how do we use SEDA, specifically our incubators and digital hubs, to de-risk the funding for SIFA, and how do we allow SIFA to come up with new funding instruments that will fund our people differently at the right time, at the right pocket size. So there's a work underway to look at the ESD fund as a co-fund with corporates, and in the tech space, and how do we work with MNOs and OEMs to fund with SIFA and have a higher funding pocket to fund startups and fund entrepreneurs within the tech space. I think last year, we also established a new fund. It's called the South African Business Innovator Fund, also managed by SIFA. So this is also a new fund that will feed into the Startup Nations framework. And then we're also looking at new funds, and more importantly, how do we transform the venture capital ecosystem in South Africa? We think it's untransformed. We think there's a lot of value in building a VC ecosystem. And I think in the next few months, I will be hosting a VC night with only Black VCs. Unapologetic about it. We need to see what is the needs of these VCs. Why have they not been given capital to manage? And what are the hindrances? And how can we fix them and allow some of our funds to be managed by Black venture capitalists? Then, colleagues, and comrades, I'm going to go through this slide quite quickly, just to give you our part, the way how we believe technology needs to be commercialized. We work in what we call technology readiness levels. So SEDA in particular functions on TRL level 4 to TRL level 9, where we provide a range of support services to be able to commercialize a new innovation and commercialize new tech. We use two pathways. We use a direct startup or existing company pathway, or we use a licensing pathway. And both these two pathways follow a very structured approach on how do we really help a startup as well as an existing enterprise to be able to get to a level where they can commercialize their innovation and commercialize their technology. I'm not going to go through the slide in detail. We can have a longer conversation later. Then this slide is very important. I think one of the work that came out of the PC4IR that my department is also starting to look at is how do you move away from the triple helix to the quadruple helix? Because if you look at previously in the triple helix, it was only government, academia, and corporate. Yeah? Government, academia, and corporate, they constituted the triple helix. And we started to realize, but what about startups and community? They are totally excluded from the helix. So we then commissioned the study, and we had a team of people that worked on us for developing a quadruple helix. I know quadruple helix is not unique to South Africa, but we then included communities and startups into the helix, and we now are structuring a range of interventions. And you could see there what we are planning. Startups, frameworks, like I said, the startup nations. How do you work within communities? How do you build these data centers, hyperscale data centers? How do you build digital hubs close to where our grassroots innovators resides? How do you use existing infrastructure, schools, centers that are standing dilapidated, and how do you convert them into hubs? And how do you develop then the support clusters that work with the private sector? So this is our thinking. It might not be perfect, but we think if we can follow this helix approach, we might see some different results of what we saw previously. Colleagues, we also, as government, specifically through SEDA, we have commissioned a business case for the development of the biggest tech hub in Africa. We're planning to do 4 hubs over the next 4 years. But we want this to be driven mainly by SMMEs and the private sector. As government, we're just going to create an enabling environment. And we've invested some funds to be able to build the business case and the prospectus, the investor prospectus, to setting up our first hub in Midrand. Government owns 2 hectares of land. It's in a prime area within Midrand. And this is where we want to build a house for SMMEs in the tech space. This facility will also have a hyperscale data center built there, where we believe that in the value chain of building a hyperscale data center, every part needs to localize. That is our view. We know that there's already certain players that is entering our market with huge amounts of money. I think Amazon is bringing close to 10 billion rand to build, I think, 5 hyperscale data centers. We think we want one of those hyperscale data centers to be here. And we want that hyperscale data center to be built by SMMEs. and managed by SMMEs. So it's a conversation, colleagues and comrades, but what we have done, we have invested funds in the business case for developing this facility. We've also, in our initial report that we received back from the consulting firm was it will cost us about 2 billion rand to build this facility, right? The total value of the land is close to, I think, 20 million. So the land is owned by us. This building that is there is also owned by us. It hosts our Soft Start BTI incubator. So we want Soft Start BTI with SMMEs, with industry to really use the business case, and we're going to market with the business case and to crowd in the 2 billion rand that we need to be able to build this facility. Then, so that is what we call your feeder hub. So your focal hub. So our plans is to have 4 of these focal hubs, 1 in KZN, 1 in Eastern Cape, 1 in the Western Cape, and then the 1 in Gauteng. So those are the 4 initial sites that we've identified to build these high scale hubs, because you have to go into regional markets and global markets from a specific platform. And then, comrades, we building what we call digital hubs as feeder hubs. So you have the feeder hubs that is in community, feeder hubs that is in townships, and these feeder hubs then feeds into the focal hubs. So our plan is to build 42 of these digital hubs over the next my slide just.
Oh yeah, you were going forward. Fast.
Am I going forward? Okay, sorry for that. Sorry for that, comrades. I think my slide just went blank. I don't know what happened. So our plan is to build 42 of these hubs. We've already finished 4, and there's a remaining 2 that we had some delays, which I will share with you now. But these hubs will be very nicely structured hubs, and you'll see how it looks. That will be in community using existing infrastructure, like I indicated. It will have co-work spaces, co-make spaces, and market spaces that will only focus on local technologies. It will have an AI lab, it will have a testing facility, it will have boardroom facilities, where we believe that tech startups can co-create solutions. They can come to that facility and they will be able to have access to high-end broadband at 1 gigabyte per second. I think myself and the president, when we designed this concept and I got some input from him and some other commissioners, we were clear that what we wanted to do is this facilities must have fast speed broadband at 1 gigabyte per second, and we want to make sure that it has high-end computing so that these innovators can come to these facilities and build technology. And it must also have very good coffee, so that they are able to work right through the night and build that new technologies that we can localize. And it will also have maker spaces, so a space where we can do first stage prototyping. We currently have 13 facilities as CEDA under management, and our vision is to have 22 facilities by March. We have been delayed last year due to COVID, but our plans is still to make sure that we have 22 new make spaces available that will have high-end 3D printing facilities, lathes, machining capabilities to help entrepreneur to build the first stage prototype. So when we put this to government, specifically to our department, with inputs from our minister, we then designed the framework. We then went further in our second tier modeling. We modeled it out, and we now have, like I said, 6 facilities that is poised for finalization. We have a Botshabelo digital hub that is 90% complete, 95% complete. The Limpopo digital hub has been delayed a little bit because of issues that we've picked up at site. So this one is a bit delayed. We hope that it will be finished within this third quarter. We have the 4IR Mpumalanga digital hub in Bombela, and we also have a smaller hub in Gertsebande in Secunda. Then we have the KwaMashu digital hub that has been delayed because of some issues that we're trying to sort out there. Then we have the Mafikeng digital hub and the Alexandra digital hub. Our digital hubs follows an underpinning. So we don't just build the hub. The hub follows a build operate model. So we invest in the build of the hub at 5 million. And then we also provide it with an operational model. We give an entrepreneur or a consortium to run the hub for us for 3 years. But the hub must be retained because we want to make sure that we develop as many tech startups as possible. Right. So this is the model that that underpins our hubs. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but it follows a very structured lean startup methodology where we train tech startups to fail, but fail fast and fail forward. We also build MVP quite quickly. We bring them before investors quickly. You know, it's there where we bring in the early stage risk capital to be able to fund this risk early. We monetize the ideas, and we then also put them in an incubation program for another 7 months, where we provide them with a range of other support interventions, from seed funds, pre-seed funds to seed funds, you know, to technology transfer funding, and then also providing loan finance from our sister entity, SIFA. Comrades, like I said, you know, we've moved beyond talk. These are our hubs. 1 year, we now have these hubs that has been launched. These are our 2 hubs in Mpumalanga. The reason why we chose Mpumalanga, it's underserviced. So this hub is a 40-seater facility that can seat about 40 tech startups. It has everything that you can think of that entrepreneur requires for them to be able to build tech out. Then we have a drone facility in Secunda because we have a hangar in partnership with Aviation Junction that is focusing on drone piloting, data science, and a few other disciplines. This is our Botshabelo facility, also now complete. We took an old factory that belonged to the FDC, and we converted it into a digital hub in Botshabelo Township. You can see some of our young tech startups already busy working in our hub. But this is a very big hub. It's a 1,700 square meter facility that has everything from what that you can think of. Co-work spaces, it has a coding lab, it has a testing facility, it has a 3D printing facility, and a rapid prototyping facility. It has boardroom facilities for entrepreneurs to meet clients, to sit in there, to really do their work. It has office facilities and office space for them to run their businesses from, because we want to de-risk them as much as possible. It also has facilities where they can really chill and really work on their tech. The only thing that is still missing, comrades, is the coffee. But I'm working with the CEO to make sure that we have a local entrepreneur that gets based in this facility to offer South African or African coffee. Then, colleagues and comrades, we have issued our first call. So the Botshabelo Hub has just completed its first cohort call, where we're going to look at e-health, e-service, and e-agri, and robotics. So that facility, that call is out. In fact, it closed on the 30th of June. And we've seen a huge amount of young people that has entered the program. Then we also we have opened our call for AI and machine learning. So that call is also now open, and it closes, I think, in a week's time or so. We've also opened our call for drones, drone pilots, but also data science. So data scientists. So how do we use the drone content? And then also the digital hub in Mpumalanga is also now opened for its second cohort to come in to be incubated in the new facility. Comrades, we've also opened our first call for, like I said, technology transfer support. So this call is now open. It closes on the 23rd of July. Is where we provide incentive finance for product quality, product testing, product design, and product certification. And we've also issued our 2021-2022 call for new digital hubs and township hubs. The minister in a budget vote made a commitment on 27 new hubs. So this call has now gone out yesterday, and it closes on the 30th of July. There's a compulsory briefing session, I think, if I'm not mistaken, on the 13th. No. There's a compulsory briefing session, but I think that date is wrong. But I'll be able to give it to comrades. And then my last 2 slides or 3 slides just shows you what we are planning to do in the hyperscale data center space. So we are of the strong opinion that we need to build a hyperscale data center near the SKA. And there's reasons for it. And already we are starting conversations with our board. We had conversations with the Economic Development Department within the Northern Cape. We've also started our chairperson of our board and our deputy chairperson of our board have also started. We've also started a conversation with the Premier's office. We're just waiting for us to finalize that conversation with the Premier's office. But one of our thinking is to build a hyperscale data center and an incubator and a digital hub in Carnarvon, close to where the SKA is located. Then we've also built our township hubs. This is our facility where we've taken an old building and we've converted it into a digital facility for young startups, specifically the tech space. We've also have 2 in the Eastern Cape, one in Naive Township and one in the CBD, in the Beach Road, I think, where we also have finalized now these 2 township hubs and one hub in the CBD. We've repurposed this one in the CBD, and we've seen some good new technologies that is coming out from these young startups. And then in the automotive sector, we're also doing some work because we want to look at new technology in terms of robotics and automation, specifically in the Ford Ranger. So our facility in Ford and in Nissan, we are planning to scale the Ford facility and bringing in newer, latest technologies and also incubating additional startups that can be able to develop solutions within the Ford Ranger space. My last few slides, colleagues, just shows you the network. So this is how big the network is in South Africa at the moment. But this network needs to be utilized specifically by tech startups. These are just the sectors that we're going to focus on over the next 3 years. And you would see tech plays a very important role for us. It's a premium in our work that we need to do as well as advanced manufacturing. And then we also do a global comparison of ourselves every year with global tech hubs across the globe, specifically in Africa. And this is just our, I think, the 2019 comparison. And you could see how South Africa, when it comes to tech hubs, fare with other African countries. And previously we were leading, but you can see what Nigeria is now doing, and you can also see what Egypt and Kenya is doing, which South Africa has really gone into a slump. And maybe it's what the SG said earlier. It's because we have just been too slow to really catch the wave. This slide just shows you our comparison with China. Look at China's growth year on year. They have a 15% year on year growth. 11,808 incubators and accelerators in the ecosystem that drives tech. Huawei as a firm was developed in an incubator, and it benefited from risk capital funds. So our thinking is not misthinking. Our thinking just needs to be pushed through, and I think that is one of the things that we want to do. Because if we look at the Chinese ecosystem, look at how the China ecosystem is growing, 15% year on year, every year. And 90% of the investment in that incubators and accelerators are government, and then there's a 10% investment from the private sector. We believe that you have to have that balance between the private sector and government. We need to bring in some private sector. Believe there, and it's just not touching our people.
Recording in progress.
Or we can send you to SEDA. So it's the cross collaboration between all government institutions that aim to drive innovation, and is the mindset of the employees of these organizations correct in really identifying potential, not necessarily following process and procedure based on a form which could have been designed 20 years ago. I know it's a lot of thoughts, but I hope you can understand where I'm coming from in really investing in innovation. It requires new thinking within all organizations.
Now, Comrade Zuko, look, you don't need to tell that to me. I'm one of maybe the rebels, and I'm saying it because I fully agree with you. You see the understanding on how to build out tech, the understanding of really to commercialize grassroots innovation sometimes is lacking within the officials that is really placed there. But I must also say that TIA is really looking at how they operate. I have a very good relationship with TIA as SEDA, and the new acting CEO is also very open-minded. He understands the frustration of innovators. He's also trying to repurpose the organization to be more agile, to be more open, to be more interesting in especially grassroots innovation. And that's why they've developed a new grassroots innovation fund. They've also repurposed their seed fund, and they've also restructured the technology development fund. So what I can propose, Chairperson, Program Director, maybe let's facilitate another session and invite Mr. Patrick Krapi, who is the CEO of the acting CEO of TIA, so that we can engage him. He's a very open guy. He really wants to develop local tech. He's a comrade. He also understands what we need to do now. So yes, I think let's facilitate that session. But also what we are trying to do is to make these hubs available to de-risk these funds that sits within TIA, CIFA, IDC, and all the other DFIs and funding entities or support entities. Because like I said, normally they use conformity assessment as a TBT. They kill our dreams, they kill our innovation, they kill our ideas, because they say you need to meet certain things for you to be able to access. So what we are trying to do is to build these facilities close to where our people are, close to where the grassroots innovators are, and then they must come into that facilities and get supported so that we de-risk the venture, we build a business model, we then bring it to them and say, here's a company prepared, please provide the support, funding or incentive. So Zuko, there's a new, let me say this, there's a new breed of people that is coming in to administer some of these programs. There's new life that is coming into these programs because some of us have run businesses before. So we understand the frustration of entrepreneurs. We understand what they are going through, because when we were running our own businesses, we were not supported also by the state. So now that we're there, we must be able to advocate for a more agile, for a more business-friendly approach. And for me, I can say it, my minister, she's run a business before. And that's why her approach is an approach to say we must be open to the needs of the entrepreneur and not open to the needs of the process or to be aligned too much to the process. So yeah, there is a new thinking that we are developing. But like I think Comrade Chair said earlier, we need to move beyond talking. I think that is the biggest problem in this country. We talk too much and do too little. So I think if we all put our heads together, if we put our efforts together and our energy together, I can remember I challenged Comrade Lidwaba at one stage around platforms, because my minister also said, why are we using Zoom? Why are we still using Zoom in this country? Why? Are we saying that we can't build our own platform? I'm saying no, it's not possible. And I think Comrade Lidwaba did indicate to me that there is some of the members of PBICT that is working on a new platform. My question is, where's that platform? When are we seeing that platform? When are we bringing that platform so that we can then start commercializing that platform and start advocating for it to be used by South Africans, specifically government? Because we use these platforms, and with respect, I heard someone said Microsoft Teams. Yes, it's fine, but can't we have our own platform? run, managed, owned by one of these entrepreneurs that is on this platform today. So Comrade Zuko, I think there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of new life, but we are open to have conversation and see where your approach to TIA went wrong. And like I said, I will also support and I will help to facilitate a meeting for PBICT with TIA and the team from the CEO's office. Yeah.
Thank you. We remain optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. We have 3 more questions. One question is from Kulile G. And then they say, what kind of products are you looking at in the agri sector? And there's another question from Lucky. It says, Tevin mentioned that the building of the hub will be a combination of SMMEs and private sectors. Which private sectors are these? And the last question, it says, I'm interested, it's from Lubabalo. He says, I'm interested on information around data centers in such an ecosystem. The question is there a CEDA program to develop especially data centers?
I think let me start with the last one, program director. I think for us, we've anchored the development of data centers within the digital hub framework, right? So like I said, the call for new digital hubs has just gone out. If you look at our broad digital hub framework, it says that the hub must be enabled and the hub must be enabling. So one of the things we're saying is that in the hub, there's no what is the right word? You are also it's also possible for you as part of your modeling to design the implementation of a data center. Yeah, we are also aware that the cost of a data center is quite high. Yeah, especially if you want to do a hyperscale data center, which we believe, in terms of our own data sovereignty as a country, we need to own our own data centers. I think we need to be unapologetic about it. But to answer the question, Program Director, it's in the modeling when the applicant applies to us for establishing a digital hub to indicate that they also want the digital hub to have a data center. It might not be a hyperscale data center because a hyperscale data center is very costly. Yeah, but it needs to have a small data center that can be built in there. Like I said, we then work on our costing framework because we want to have these data centers in close to where our grassroots innovators are. So it's possible within the digital hub framework to have the data centers. Program Director, also the other thing is the data center, the digital hubs are funded at 5 million rand per hub. But it also says that the applicant must be able to crowd in investment from other partners. Yeah, and it's in that way you can also design the hyperscale data center. The question on Chairperson, Program Director, if you can give me the second question again. The second one. Program Director.
I think it was on the agri stuff.
Okay, on the agri stuff. Thanks, SG. On the agri side, look, when it comes to tech, we're looking at drones as an IoT. Yeah? So drones as an IoT, we believe that we can play quite a significant role within the agri side. So that's why we're building drones out. One from a device that can be used to be able to capture data, from soil, right aggregate, and so forth. Valuable data that can be used before a farmer goes into planting, right? That's the one thing that we see value in agri-tech, specifically agri-tech. The second thing is in smart farming. So how do you use, again, sensors and so forth to automate some of the elements that needs to go into a farm? So how do you bring the farmer, which is a traditional farmer that farms, and how do you bring tech and how do you merge the two to be able to create a smart farm? So there's also work that we're doing in that side, and we're looking for innovations in terms of smart farming, digital farming, and so forth. Yeah, so that is on the agri side. So it's drones, but as well as, if you look at it, it's more drones or IoT devices in the agri side. How do you improve for us to get higher yields from our farms using technology? So broadly, how do you use drones? How do you use different IoT devices? Right? Then I think the first question, William, if you can just help me with the first one. Can't remember the first one.
Oh, he was talking about the private and public. Which private sector are you partnering with?
Okay. Thanks, comrades. I think that one, look, I think, like I said, I'm not going to come here to comrades and say to you, I'm sitting on bags of money, because I don't, right?
Yeah.
I have land. Let me say government has land. We've made that land available, prime land, prime. It's prime land. It's in the heart of Midrand, where all the MNOs and all the OEMs are. We are saying, how can we make sure that we create a symbiotic relationship between big and small businesses to the benefit of small businesses? So when we're saying we're going to build that hub out, obviously you have to bring in the private sector. For instance, and let me not use there's one MNO that has already come and said, look, we want to place our skills academy on tech there. There's one big OEM that has said, we want to place our new Industry 4.0 facility in that new hub. Now, what you do, in that hub, you put small business and you put big business, and they jointly co-create solutions. But when it comes to getting that 2 billion to finance the establishment of that hub, we will obviously have to go to the private sector first, because government doesn't have the money at the moment. And my minister has made it clear, Turban, for now, we don't have the money. Let's invest in the prospectus. Let's invest in the business case. We believe it's sound. Now let's give it to the private sector and to an entrepreneur to take to market, to bring in the investment and establish the hub, and then monetize the hub, because it's going to have living pods. It's going to have everything that you think about, that you need to have in building a tech ecosystem. Yeah. So obviously, I think initially we will have to crowd in some money from the private sector, and that includes entrepreneurs that has appetite to be able to run and invest in a hub like that. So that's what we're talking about. It's that partnership between the private sector and the public sector, and SMMEs, because SMMEs are the private sector anyway. It's just smaller businesses and smaller firms that we believe needs to have investment or needs to take a stake in this investment in setting up the hubs. And as government, when money becomes available, we will also become an investor. Like in the case of Midrand, we own the land. So that is already about 30 million investment that we are making into the facility, to de-risk the loan facility to a possible investor. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tevin. Comrades, we will address your question and answers during the Q&A session, because time is against us. So we're moving along to our next speaker, Mr. Smme Mafu. He's a managing director at Edition Connect. The stage is yours, Mr. Smme.
Greetings, comrades. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can, comrade.
You can see the Edition Connect screen. I'm mindful of the time, and I will try and be to the point. I like the previous presentation very much because it talks to the will of the state in leading transformation, and almost everything was perfect that Comrade Jafta said, except for the issue about not having money. I think a state that is determined to transform and lead the inclusion of its majority into these formal sectors must make money available. There's no such thing that the state can say it doesn't have sufficient funds to lead that transformation. Transformation is a bigger challenge right now for our generation than is corruption. The focus on corruption is necessary in as far as it is a cancer that prevents transformation from happening, and we must allow law enforcement to deal with those who are corrupt. Private or public sector corruption, they must be dealt with the harshest of sentences, but that cannot be the generational mission of our generation to talk about corruption every day. We should be focusing on transformation as our main issue. Comrades, can you mute? Thank you. So in my view, our generational mission really is to fight for the inclusion of the natives in all sectors of the economy, and our sector is one of the least transformed. I don't know if PBICT has done any research who owns which data center in South Africa. You cannot talk data centers without talking, say, Terraco. And I'm not here to badmouth them. They are a good company. They are a strong South African case study. They have over 20,000 cross connects in their building. They help a lot of emerging companies. But who owns them? Some private equity investment company. How is it that they are able to have level 2B? How come we haven't, mounted any serious competition to them in the 20-odd years of their existence? So these are the types of questions we need to be asking. Comrades, I'll give you a quick overview of our company. I'm speaking from the private sector as an input supplier in those who have an ambition to work with SEDA and CEFA to get money and then build data centers of all kinds, whether it's multi-tenant or enterprise data centers or service provider ones. We are a partner that can assist in that. I'll tell you a bit about our company. And then I'll give you a data center case study of one of the big data centers. I think we need to dream big. We mustn't, there's no glory in playing small. We have to dream big and see what other people have done. And then we need to discuss what is the outlook for South Africa and the way forward. So ours is a company that is listed, is a group company called Etion Limited. It's on the stock exchange. We've got 4 divisions. Please mute, comrades. Thank you. We've got a company that focuses on making motherboards and other precision type engineering materials that we export into the military industry. It's called Etion Create. And then we've got a company that focuses on IoT that works with Transnet called Digitize. We have ourselves, I'm the MD of the business unit called Connect, which is a telecoms passive connectivity infrastructure company, which I will talk about for the majority of the presentation. And then we've got Etion Secure, which really is a company that focuses on cybersecurity it used to be called Law Trust. It has recently been sold to Altron for about 200 million rand. We've got the 3 BUs, and then we've got obviously a group structure and which reports into a board. So what is it that we sell? So when you build a telecoms network, you are using active equipment, switches, routers, base stations, etc. And then you also use passive infrastructure. Your inside plant, which is where your telco hub is, your outside plant, which is taking the infrastructure into the various environments, whether it's underground or overhead. And then you have the end dwelling, whether it's a business or a home, where you put your fiber equipment. So we are selling all the passive connectivity equipment. 80%, unfortunately, we import, 20% we make locally. Our plan was to change that around into 80% being made locally and 20% import, eventually have 100% made locally. We've obviously been stopped a bit by COVID, but it remains our business plan to transform. So your distribution frames, your ODFs, your OMDFs, your various types of enclosures, very modular equipment, your different types of panels, your fiber guided systems, your patch leads, your various splitters. For those of you who are involved with the FTTX market, you know that you can build one fiber to one dwelling called active Ethernet, or you can use your GPON method where one fiber point is split across multiple and dwellings, which GPON versus active Ethernet, your various drop enclosures, your cabinets. In fact, our company is the one that assisted, that worked with Vumatel. Vumatel is the pioneer of FTTX. If you drive around Parkhurst, which is the community that first gave them a chance to build FTTX, you'll see those street cabinets with the various distribution boxes inside. It's all Etion Connect equipment. It's very likely that if you have FTTX to your home or to your fiber, we've played some role in it. We sell to 80% of the market that is building either long haul or last mile fiber. So from your inside plant, outside plant, and dwelling unit, various types. If you want to use a patch panel that uses 188 fibers or versus 288 fibers, we can obviously do all of that. So when you want to fiber up a data center, whether it's a different a rack or a cabinet, we are working with data centers that are being built in Midrand and in Cape Town to get connectivity up and running. So ComScope is our OEM that we work with. We've got a long-term distribution business with them, and then we do a lot of local manufacture with IP that we have honed over the years. And really, the fact that we are importing this is not right. I mean, we are talking just really injection molding devices, and some of it is steel, but most of it is plastic. We should not be paying in ROE for this. We've got enough capacity locally for us to do it. We have presented a business case to the state to try and assist us to set up this local plant so that we create local jobs and not have to do things on the outside, bring things from the outside. So all the carriers that are building into the fiber market are our customers. I would like to tell you more now about Africa Data Centers, whom we've worked with quite extensively. They are a Liquid subsidiary, and I'm not marketing them, but I have a lot of information around how they've gone about setting up their data center. And I think SMMEs within the audience that have got ambition to build and set up a data center market can learn from the Africa Data Center experience. In addition to material supply, we also do training of new technologies that have been brought in. And we teach people how to do splicing and how to do fiber installations, how to commission a network, how to set it up and install it end to end. We can even sell your testing, fiber testing equipment. We have our own delivery infrastructure, forklifts and trucking, and obviously we have a significant warehouse for product management in Midrand, in Corporate Park North. We recently relocated from Clayville. So what does this mean really for the SA data center business? In the last 3 years or so, we've seen quite a big flurry of new data center initiatives coming in. And the cloud computing land grab has even been accelerated by COVID-19 because a lot of big and small companies have decided it's more secure to put their working environments within hosted hyperscale data centers. So you've got Terraco that I've mentioned before, which is recently announced they want to expand by another 3,000 square meter because they've got so much demand that they have to take care of. We've had Cloud Raider from Germany come in and set up 2 centers in Joburg. Dimension Data has announced that it wants to set up data centers. One of our clients, DFA, in fact, is also planning in the conception stages of one. DFA is part of the CIVH group that owns Vumatel and SADV, and has got shares in, it's owned by Remgro and so forth. And then you've got Microsoft and Amazon, Huawei, all of them are either setting up or working to establish very significant data centers in the country to take market share. So if you look at what Liquid has done, Liquid has recently rebranded itself from being a data and a voice and a typical traditional telco to being a one-stop shop that can cut across the iOS stack from layer 1 infrastructure up to the application level, whatever their clients need. They have spawned off 100% owned Africa data centers. Obviously, Liquid is owned by Econet, Strive Masiwiwe and company, and then there's also all sorts of convoluted ownership of how it is listed. But ADC is selling, very competitive co-location, pay-per-use services. They've got data centers in Joburg. They've got one in Cape Town as well, and then they have got presence in East Africa as well. If you look at the sizes of these data centers, where they started from where they are planning to erect themselves, you can clearly see there's a lot of demand. If you look at the power consumption and the power user effectiveness, which is done by an outside body, it is very clear that they are responding to a market that is, going through a lot of transition. In addition to its data centers, they also have some edge computing centers in other parts of Africa that Liquid is busy with. But in terms of cabinet space, where it is versus where it is planning to grow, the number of cross connects, the number of racks that they are putting in, we are working with them quite closely to kit out some of these centers to get them right. So when you see Joburg 1.1 and 1.2 versus 1.4, it's simply different segments of data center builds that they are setting up. Obviously, you know that Liquid used to be Newtel, and the mid-range data center is one that has high demand, where everybody wants to be present. At the present moment, all the big telcos are with Africa data centers. They've been able to grab market share in a very quick, in a short space of time. And the services that they are selling, Metro Ethernet, Cloud Connect, and then obviously telcos being able to cross connect to each other, as well as hosting space in the cloud market for endpoint security and for various other operators that are co-located with them. This is I showed you the Africa footprint, the South African footprint. This is their East African footprint, which is also planned for expansion quite significantly. They've been able to unlock $300 million, and it's probably going to be up to exceeding $1 billion to set up what they are doing. So we need our government to be bold if it is serious about empowering Black business to own data centers, especially when it means building up once from the ground as opposed to merely acquisitions. The money has to be found. Transformation is a deliberate act that you plan and invest in over time. Obviously, Africa Data Centers gets its certification from various international bodies to make sure it complies with the cooling and power usage, as well as whether it's tier 1, tier 2, and then its power usage equivalent. Any power usage equivalent is a ratio where you take your computing power that is inside the data center and you divide it against the total consumption of power and cooling equipment of the facility as a whole. And anything between 1.2 to 2.3 is considered a very good PUE ratio. And Africa Data Centers competes very much with the European market at its PUE ratio. So meaning it's extremely efficient in how it is using its energy deployment. We are not there yet where with Europe and United States in terms of using renewable energy. We pretty much are still very much reliant on Eskom as well as UPS equipment. So only 15% of the ADC infrastructure is powered by renewable equipment. And then obviously from a selling point of view, they position themselves as a one-stop shop for customers that are looking for the portfolio of services that are required from Liquid, as well as that which is required from ADC. They've got your designing engineers, they've got your power experts, the pricing, the people who can tell you how much is a rack for cooling and so on, and they are willing to work with businesses that seek to co-locate with them. One of the questions that PBICT should be investigating is who is doing all of this data center construction work, who is doing the design, who is installing this, where is the material being bought, where are these cooling racks, why are they using Vertiv and not other local South African equivalents of power, and then who's manning the NOCs and etc. all of that. So these are just pictures of expansion of sites that we have worked with them, that we've assisted in fibering up and in bringing those into the market. So the Cape Town expansion, for instance, is going to be in excess of 500 square meters. And Africa Nairobi one, there's an ambition to plan a brand new building that they have in Midrand, which I think has probably been held back by the COVID-19 event, but it's probably going to happen sooner than later. And then, there's a whole value proposition around why they are the best in terms of costs and pay per use and pay per rack, and being scalable and growing with your client as your client's needs evolve. And they are constantly looking, for partners, for SMMEs to even try and do channel partnership agreements with them to try and assist to co-locate more clients. They hardly have much of government in there. So if there are SMMEs on the forum who are working with the state has its own data center requirements, and who can broker connections between government data center requirements with ADC. They should talk to us to try and connect them with the ADC people to be able to do such deals. And then obviously as a value add, they say that they pay for the free peering to Jinx and Sinks for their clients. But in a nutshell, just to pull it all together between Etion and what ADC is doing, is that we have, as a continent, 15% of the world's population. We only have 1% of its data centers. There is a huge opportunity to work with supplier companies that are input providers into the data center market, as well as those who are able to fund your CEDAs and IDCs and so on, to be able to start your own initiative. Maybe start small, create demand, and then try and scale up over time. So data centers will be enabling the heart of economic growth going forward. As the power of computing is moving from physical into virtual, into cloud computing, where content and security and storage, your financial services market, your telco services market, all of it will continue to rely more on being able to be hosted on secure platforms. And as I say, the COVID-19 pandemic has actually driven the demand higher for data center requirements. So I would say, where do you start if you are an SMME and you have an ambition around this? Start small, develop a business case, work with potential clients to try and get some level of offtake agreements. Work with companies like ours that have access to some of the best carrier-grade OEM equipment to fiber up your data center market and to be able to assist you out. We've got design engineers that can do your planning, and then find reference sites that you can try and set up, and then try and look for your funding. We can assist with working with you to make business cases to the likes of SEDA for you to be able to then start. We have a lot of expertise, not only in in Etion Connect, but with our global OEM that has set up data centers all around the world, different types of it, to be able to partner with yourselves. I'd like to stop my presentation and take pause for questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mafu. That was an informative presentation. I think in the interest of time, we should just move to the next speaker, and then we'll have our Q&As after the session. So, Mr. Mitesh, the platform is yours. Mr. Mitesh is a Cloud Business Group Executive at EY. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you, Chair. It's great to be here, and it's great to see the number of people taking out time on the weekend, to have the discussion. Considering we're very far behind on time, I'm thinking, so I have both a presentation, or I can just handle it, where I share a point of view in terms of, the opportunities in the market, where it's going. Do you want me to do the presentation? Because I'm thinking we might not have time to go through the broader presentation, or can I just, share the broad point of view across, the SME-owned data centers? I don't know, Program Director, what do you suggest?
I think our members would like to see a presentation. Maybe questions will just rise from that presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Tell me when you can see my screen. I'm just trying to see. Are you able to see my screen on your side?
No. Yes, I can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So when we look at data centers, I thought I'll just kind of give an overview, and I'll try to be brief because I want to give time for more discussion. Obviously, what we've seen in the economy is, significant, obvious explosion of the data that we have in the economy, right? And when you look at what was the role of data centers, it's there to establish, economies of scale, i.e., there's a scarce amount of resources, be it, finances, be it skills within the country and those kind of things. And you would find that, one of the key things is to aggregate these resources into a central space, right? And the idea is to make more resilient, I would say, ecosystems. And when we talk about resilience, we're talking about, enabling high availability, backup and recovery, ensuring there's multiple sites available, ensuring that there's geo-redundancy available, and that basically is, why many clients start engaging into data center conversations. Now, why there's a significant move towards those data centers is because of the volume and the growth at which data is moving at, right? So on average, I know, these are old statistics, but on average, data is growing at 10 times every 5 years, right? So, at that exponential growth, you need to invest significantly more to process that data. Now, when you're looking at what kind of data is causing this growth, you would find that many organizations, where when they are currently processing the data, they are operating at this level here, where it's known data sets, it's internal applications, and structured information, right? Whereas the opportunity in terms of value we're seeing is outside of this, what we call in the Web 2 space, where we're seeing a lot more information around unstructured information, where people are, for example, doing targeted marketing based on how people are using their websites and their online presence, etc. Right? Understanding, audio information, video information, and this is done, for example, by posts that's being put out on social media. What is a person's like? What is their dislikes, right? And then we're seeing a lot more explosion around, the AI, IoT agenda. We're seeing a lot more sensors coming on into the market, and obviously creating significant more data traffic, right? And so that is where the opportunity really lies, outside of what I would call the traditional data sets, right? That's causing this significant explosion, with data. So when you look at it, ideally you'll find the current space in which insights being delivered is, in the 20% space, but 80% of the data assets within organizations are dark. And what this is like, is, let's say, for example, if you have documents, if you have audio recordings with customers, these are also valuable to organizations, and it's driving, organizations to start bringing those into the mainstream, I would say, organizational data repository. And so it's this space that is creating the most amount of growth with the usage of data centers. Now, when you look at why the industry is starting to look at consuming both hyperscale data centers and even edge data centers, and perhaps I'll come to the usage of edge data centers, is because one, there is, I would say, when they in their physical environment, this allows them to grow to a limited space and capacity. Two, you would find advanced technologies, such as blockchain, AI, IoT, and I think even in 5 to 10 years, we're looking at quantum computing being accessible. These are very difficult to make available in local data centers, right? And so therefore, when you find, as an example, the hyperscalers making accessible these advanced technologies like AI, IoT, and even quantum computing, it's becoming available in a democratized way. And what that means is that they are building these ecosystems in one place, and clients are being able to consume that research and development, across the globe, right? So as an example, let's say AI, if you take a sub branch of AI, you would get an area called computer vision, right? So this is able to look at videos, look at images, and tell you what's the context of this image, what's in that image, right? Now, they are training and developing new and new models every single day, and enhancing, how these AI models are being able to interpret these images. And as they continuously integrate and develop new and new models and launch them into these global platforms, these new features are becoming available for clients to consume across the globe instantaneously, right? So that ability to kind of centralize services, to deploy research and development centrally, is becoming increasingly valued, right? So the need to become more future resilient is important. Being able to build and consume services as you require them, instead of having a VM sitting or a data center sitting underutilized. Clients are looking at more on-demand consumption models, right? So pay as you go, as opposed to doing capex investment upfront, and you may or may not use the infrastructure, and then obviously operating in a hybrid environment becomes important. And I'll give you a view of how what we call edge DCs and data centers are coming together. And then lastly, building out trusted cloud, right? So the elements around privacy, around compliance, around certifications become important, right? Now, when you look at the environment in which these data centers and the services they're making available, this is growing at a very, very rapid pace, right? We're seeing, new technologies coming out, on a monthly basis. We're seeing new concepts in the technology space, evolving very quickly. And we're starting to see, more and more, I would say, needs to have hybrid environments, right? And what does it mean, to have hybrid environments? So what we're starting to see is, the clients are consuming, I would say, commoditized services or traditional services through hyperscalers. And this is, for example, using the infrastructure as a service or using hyper-converged infrastructure from the larger data center providers, from the hyperscalers. We're seeing them using, things like the security controls, being able to manage the end-to-end DevOps process, being able to consume storage on demand, right? App virtualization services, database services. We're seeing, obviously, because the global players have invested significantly, and they invest in the scales of billions of dollars annually on these commodity services. They have got this down to a very, very optimized price point, right, for the market. So this is why you find, to a large degree, those data centers are consumed and the traditional services are coming through the hyperscalers. And where we're seeing, the growth out into the edge computing come in is, we're starting to see a lot more move into the 5G kind of scenarios and which are time sensitive type of scenarios, right? So where we're seeing data centers deployed at the edge is, for example, if you look at remote surgery, or if you look at autonomous cars, or you look at your remote drivers, right, which are future kind of scenarios, right? These are all kind of use cases that are built on 5G technology, right? And these are what we call time-sensitive scenarios, i.e., you don't want a remote surgeon working on you and there's, high latency, and there's delay before he can make a decision on which artery to work on. And it's in these kind of scenarios that we're seeing a lot more edge computing being deployed, right? Where, data centers are being built closer to where it's required. So as an example, let's say if you're looking at safe cities, right? Safe cities would, one of the use cases in there is what we call, the video analytics use case, where it's determining what's happening on the CCTV network, right? It's building insights on it. So you're starting to get the need for the video images and the video feeds to be processed closer to the cameras, and as and when you detect insight. So as an example, if you see a scuffle in a crowd, or if you see someone take out a gun, in a public space, these are alerts that need to be determined at the point they happen. It's no use determining these alerts, a day later, 2 days later. And what we're seeing is that's where edge computing is coming into play, where it's processing these type of scenarios at the edge and offloading the insight, perhaps into centralized data centers. So we're seeing a lot of those kind of use cases. We're also seeing a lot of these kind of use cases in the mining sector as well, right? So when you look at in the mining sector, now with COVID that has come along, we're looking at the scenarios where they are deploying private clouds within the mine, and then they also deploying and consuming public cloud services. So for example, they'll consume AI in terms of vision analytics, but they might be consuming VMs that are sitting within a private cloud environment. And if you look at the use cases that one starts to see within that space, it's about image processing. Let's take an example of COVID. COVID has brought along the demand to be able to confirm whether your employees are working there, are wearing the health and safety equipment, right? Or are they, you know, kind of grouping, you know, which is bringing risk to the workplace. Now, those are also, you know, video or vision analytics kind of scenarios. So in those use cases, you're starting to see, you know, they might be consuming things like vision and cognitive intelligence from the cloud, and they might be using, you know, processing in an edge DC scenario in a private data center. And this is how we're seeing, you know, the convergence between both the hyperscalers and you know, kind of your edge kind of computing in a client environment. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, you know, you know, from this diagram, you can easily see the kind of traditional services that need to be put into private cloud. And these are, for example, elements around having a marketplace, right, for a client to be able to spin up a product on demand. For example, I want a database, or I want 10 VMs. Having a clean management console, you know, where you are able to do what developers refer to as DevOps, right? So continuous integration, continuous deployment. Having those operation and support console, so being able to monitor the environment, the VMs, to ensure they are up. Are there any alerts that need to be attended to? Having the security infrastructure in place, right? So, you know, cyber threats are you know, growing quite significantly, and I think a lot of South African clients are being targeted. So being able to have advanced threat protection, having, you know, your security controls, being able to manage your patching from a central place becomes important. You know, being able to build and monitor the usage both across your on-premise as well as your public cloud environment. And then these are what I would call traditional kind of services, you know, virtual machine storage, databases. You know, clients, you know, sometimes they spin it up in the on-premise environments, but where they run out of capacity, you know, this is where public cloud, you know, gives you that substantial growth. And then lastly, you see these are what I would call democratized type of services, you know, where you're starting to see, you know, more of the modern stuff around IoT, blockchain, cognitive services, and what obviously there's a lot more maturity in the public cloud space because of the amount of investment that they are doing within that area. So I'm going to skip over a few slides. This here gives you a kind of view of, you know, one of the things you want to get out is to have a, you know, single pane of glass to be able to manage, you know, across what was referred to as containerized DCs, or you know, DCs that are deployed, you know, at a client site or in the township, as an example. You'll find that, you know, you need to have, you know, the ability to manage both across your private cloud environment as well as your public cloud environment. And you don't want to have different panes of glass to manage it. You want to have a single kind of pane of glass, you know, where you are able to manage both on-premise as well as, you know, your public cloud investments, right? Be able to get a unified view on billing, being able to get a unified view on security, around your patch management, around your policies and controls that are applied, be able to move workloads between on-premise and cloud, right? So for example, if you're experiencing an issue on-premise, how do you seamlessly you know, switch on your cloud capabilities so that there's no downtime within the business? And I think one of the other areas where we're seeing a lot of consideration going in is, you know, around the trust aspect, right? So how are you auditing this environment? What are your security controls in this environment? And I'll kind of just unpack this slightly a bit more. How do you do access control, you know, in terms of users logging in, but also physically of that environment, right? So you are any individuals being able to come in and out of your environment? What are the data protections? What are the compliance standards that you're adhering to? because these become important, very important to, you know, your larger clients and your multinational clients, right? In terms of adhering to the you know, data protection laws in the respective areas, whether it's POPI locally or whether it's GDPR globally. How are you enabling this across the environment? And then having, you know, auditing across the entire environment. Here, just a quick glance of, you know, different tiers of you know, data protection that one needs to consider when putting together and running these data centers, you know, all the way from the central place around you know, the user authentication and you know, are you able to access which columns, what files are you able to access, how are you doing, you know, network level encryption, how are you monitoring the entire environment overall, you know, with threat protection type of products, ensuring that, you know, if any vulnerabilities are identified, you remediate those quickly. If you are seeing any kind of attempts by cyber attackers, you are able to, you know, proactively mitigate against these, and having a kind of clear view across the entire, you know, the data protection landscape becomes important for many clients. We're seeing a lot of nowadays, you know, especially with POPI being in full effect, then the need for compliance, the need for you know, the security control across the entire ecosystem of platform, and you know, the ability to inherit certification. So, you know, for example, clients are doing mergers and acquisitions, they're entering new markets. You know, if you get a local client from South Africa buying a company out in Europe, he now needs to. Sorry, colleagues, can we go on mute? So we're seeing, you know, the need for them to get multi-country compliance, you know, both comply with the local POPI compliance, but as they enter new markets, they now need to be able to comply with new standards on those markets, and how do you reduce the cost of compliance? And this is where certification of those platforms become important, right? You have kind of your global certifications, but then you have, you know, some standard industry certifications, some of them in the financial sector, some of them in the health sector, you know, and when you build out data centers, being able to have these compliance standards built into that reduces the cost overall for clients, you know, to certify. I kind of think, you know, maybe quick scenarios of use cases in the future, and maybe I'll just talk to them. When you're looking at, you know, I think one of the questions that were asked in the chat window is, you know, what are those opportunities that exist, you know, for the local economy? I think when you look at, you know, the township economy scenarios and the local use cases, you know, one, we see South Africa, obviously, whilst we have a weak rand against the dollar, this, you know, to some, it can be an opportunity, right? We obviously have a high amount of unemployed human capital within the country. And, you know, having a weak currency makes it very attractive for outsourcing, right? So as an example, if you are running a cybersecurity operations center, you know, from South Africa, it becomes very cost attractive for, you know, clients in the US, clients in Europe, you know, to be able to access the service because, you know, from a dollar to rand exchange rate, you know, they are able to unpack much more service for their spend, right? You find that obviously we're quite well located between both the US as well as the Middle East and the Eastern markets. And so we sit in a quite an interesting time zone that can service both East and West. You see, you know, in terms of the you know, containerized DC scenarios, obviously, you know, if you're deploying these within the township environment, you know, there's the opportunity around connectivity. Every data center that you deploy needs to be connected, and these can act as expansion points to enable connectivity to those that are not currently connected, right? So the township ISP scenario becomes viable. You could stretch, that connectivity, whether you are bringing fiber to the data center, you can stretch that further, into the community, and you're starting to see, things like TV white space and scenarios like that becoming used out in the communities. And these obviously unlock, the connected village scenario. It brings in the township economy. If you are enabling connectivity as an ISP to the township, you are now able to bring in this untapped township economy into the mainstream economy, and enable, these kind of data center services, whether it's, hosting websites, hosting VMs, hosting solutions. I think those things become viable once you enable the connectivity to the community. I think also, in that environment, we see opportunities in the farming sector, in terms of the emerging farmers. I think someone highlighted earlier on things around the precision farming type of scenarios, which need IoT technology, being able to monitor, the farming environment, be it with video analytics. You have a concept called NDVI analysis, which requires significant compute at the edge. These become all viable, if you expand the edge computing scenario into the emerging farmer kind of use case. I think when you look at, further opportunities, we know that there's a significant need for the broader market, be it the private sector or public sector, to go paperless, right? And however, in the incumbent ecosystem, whether you go to a public office, there's a lot of paper being used, right? That paper needs to be digitized. And what that means is, many times records are sitting on papers on people's desks or in offices, right? But there's a significant need for that data to be brought centrally, to be digitized, to apply OCR, to have scanning centers, and these in themselves create opportunities for employment. So being able to enable those digitizations centers could, become opportunities, to take the market into a paperless kind of economy. Reskilling unemployed youth into operation centers. I gave a use case around the cybersecurity operation center. Establishing, these perhaps in the township allows you to create employment for current unemployed youths and graduates, whilst unlocking new I would say, services, not only to address the local market, but also the global market, right? So having these kind of shared services centers, creates employment. But that being said, one needs to take the steps to create those learning and training programs to reskill, unemployed individuals into these future skills. And I think, those are kind of some of the township economy use cases that we've seen. Let me see. I think, the needs for the future training programs, education is also quite key. This is where the connected classroom comes into play. And that obviously, if you kind of enable connected classrooms, you are now able to get into that classroom and expose new learning paths and new ways of teaching, right? To kind of generate the skills that are needed for the next 5 to 10 years. So I think, Flo, without going on with the future opportunities, I think, there's significant opportunities perhaps in the future market. And I don't think, the opportunities are in the platform spaces where I think, someone spoke about Zoom earlier on, and the productivity stacks being, like things like Microsoft Teams. I think that is not where the opportunities lie. I think those solutions they have significant investment and R&D being thrown at them, at a global level, right? So those are very saturated market, but there's a lot of opportunities, I would say further downstream in the industry use cases where people are building solutions for specific industries, whether it's healthcare, mining, education. I think that is where one should look at investing, time, research, IP development, because those are, not very saturated, and there's a big opportunity to be able to penetrate and unlock, those kind of use cases and markets with kind of edge DC and containerized type of DC scenarios. So thank you, and I hope I've shared a bit of insight in terms of what we've been seeing in the cloud space. Back to you, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mitesh. That was insightful indeed. And now we will move to our Q&A. This will only take 10 minutes, and then we'll have our chair, Mr. William Ledoba, to close the session. So any hands up for Q&As? Any question? Okay, I don't see.
There's a question on my end, Comrade Flo. Someone is asking, what's the relationship between Africa Datacenters, Aetion, and Tedaka? I think that's for our previous speaker.
Thank you, Comrade.
Shall I answer, Comrade Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so they are a customer of ours. So Tedaka is the old name for Aetion. Aetion is the new name, and Aetion Connect is the telecoms arm of the group. And we work closely with Africa Datacenters in terms of fibering up, providing racks and cabinets and ODFs in their expansion network. And that's why we have some insight in how a data center is actually designed and rolled out, and thought it would be of value to share a best practice of a carrier grade tier 3, tier 4 data center to our audience, because we have to, the way the Chinese built Huawei and ZTE is by dreaming big, by sending engineers to Cisco and copy and try and be equal to the best and not start small. So my thinking was we should be pitching ourselves to be at the level of what the big people are doing, and then we can do a smaller scale based on whatever our capacity allows us. I just want to address I think that he gave a very comprehensive input on township users of data center. There is a very famous case study. There's a very famous case study in Kenya.
Sorry, Smme, you went on mute.
Guys, please mute your speakers.
I was saying that Mitesh really covered very extensively the township users of potential data center applications and what economic impact that they have. I wanted to add on that based on what I saw in the chat. There's a very famous case where in some remote areas in Kenya, the government invested in creating data centers in a box. Big standalone steel fabricated structures that are fitted out with all the DC and AC cooling and powering equipment, and they were then positioned in strategic places. I just forget what the name of the project is. I'll try and find it and maybe share it on the PBICT WhatsApp group. But it won global awards from the UN in terms of UNDP Human Development Index, improving the quality of service of communities in those areas, giving communities access to register birds and for access to various online services, in many ways equal to what people in Scandinavia, in first world countries, were having in terms of government connectivity services. So that is a very good use. And I want to share a name of a local company in South Africa called High Tech Greg4 in sort of Lenasia area, that are very, very good at doing that type of data center in a box. In fact, they have shipped quite significant amounts of standalone data center infrastructures to operators in various parts of Africa where the national infrastructure was challenging for them to physically build and get something out of the ground. So they've been able to be commissioned to do a turnkey provider and send it with its UPS and battery and all sorts of things to be able to sustain the requirements that is required. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mafu, there's another question for you. Okay, I lost that question.
Program Director, can I share, something on the back of what Smme was saying?
Okay, please.
Yeah, I think, Smme brings up a great point, in terms of what they were doing in Kenya. You would see also the further developments, around data centers is what they refer to as modularized data centers. As an example, you would have seen, for example, some of the hyperscale providers, they are containerized versions of these data centers. And if you were to see, there's obviously public announcements around the partnerships they have been entering in with, the telco providers, right? And these are 5G operators. In some cases, you would find that, as an example, one of the relationships was with Skylink. Skylink is a satellite kind of connectivity ecosystem, right? What this means is that, one can now order a dropship container, and it will be directly connected. You won't even need to lay out fiber to connect it up. And, this container would have certain amount of compute capacity, UPS, etc., built into it. And, as you need to grow your demand, whether it's for a mining client or another use case, you would be able to buy these kind of modules and switch them on immediately when they drop them off at site. So I think, eventually you're going to find more and more of those kind of use cases of these containerized DCs being, bought by clients, because you're also seeing that the way that the commercial models for those commercialized DC or the containerized DCs are working is OpEx, right? So you just order it and they drop it off, you switch it on, and you pay for what you use, and it's turnkey. So I just wanted to add that viewpoint of what Smme was saying was happening in Kenya, because I think more and more of that is going to happen both locally and I think globally as well.
There's another question in the chat. It says, how can machine learning enabled fintech startups work with organizations presenting today?
Chairperson, I think from our side, there is opportunities. Like I said, we're looking across all the verticals because we see opportunities in different sectors that we engage with, especially with the DTIC. And if you look at machine learning, it's how do you deploy it to the auto sector and also to other sectors. And I think industries are ripe. I think we're building, as colleagues are aware and comrades are aware, we're building the Tshwane Automotive SEZ. And there's also plans underway to build a 4IR SEZ. So in the automotive SEZ is where we want to bring in new technologies. So the entrepreneur that wants to engage on how to deploy technologies can just contact us and we will put them in touch with one of the hubs so they can start being able to build out the solutions and we can feed it into into the OEMs within the SEZ, but also feed it into the, like I said, within the rail build. We can also feed it into the rail build opportunities with the Gibela trains that are now being built. So there is a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of industry and a lot of corporates that are open to new tech that will be channeled through the hubs. Just on the DCs, I think we will be interested, Chairperson, also to look at the containerized DCs, specifically to start them off within the township digital hubs. So if we can have contact of the entrepreneur or the company that is building the containerized DCs, we will really be interested to make sure that every one of our township digital hubs have like I said, a data center. Where it is a smaller data center, we need it there. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And I see two hands, one from Siphiwe, Shandu, and Mitesh. Siphiwe, you can go first, and then Mitesh, you can follow. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I joined a bit late. I'm somewhat of a futurist, so I liked what Mitesh was talking about, and maybe I just want to prick his mind on something around quantum computing. Do you see value in industry or entrepreneurs getting into the quantum computing research and development stuff to actually probably try and build use cases? Because as you said, we're looking at it from a 10 to 15 year timeline. But if we are only introduced into quantum computing in 10 to 15 years time, we're already late. So what opportunities, not really opportunities, how do we get involved, or how can we initially get involved so that we are part of the ecosystem such that 10 years from now, we're actually benefiting, or whoever is coming after us are already benefiting from the use cases that we've built around that quantum computing? My second question, just to get insight, is around autonomous vehicles. And is there an ecosystem from a South African context, and are we building that? I guess 5G will play a very, very, very critical role in that. But where are we as entrepreneurs around the 5G spaces and 5G use cases? I know you mentioned, agricultural and all other stuff, but just around autonomous vehicles, do you have infrastructure in place to actually build out those use cases, and how do we get into those opportunities to actually make it a reality? Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Program Director, can I go respond to both?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, so let me take the autonomous vehicle, and then I'll come to the quantum computing scenarios, right? So when you look at autonomous vehicles, and also maybe I'll touch on the machine learning for fintech startups. Obviously, there's significant investment, and we know we have significant vehicle manufacturing capabilities in country, right? So you will see that obviously, from an ML perspective, a machine learning perspective, there's huge demand in terms of being able to fit into, the autonomous vehicle use cases, these new machine learning models, whether they are cognitive models, whether they are vision type of models, i.e., remember, when you're going to look at a car driving on a road, it must be able to recognize a road sign, it must be able to recognize people, it must be able to recognize its environment in general, the context in which it's operating, right? And so the need for machine learning in those use cases is significant. Obviously, I think it was Comrade Jafta that highlighted, the SEZs are there is obviously a motor manufacturing SEZ, and these are the incubation areas in which those machine learning models will have to be designed, would have to be piloted, would have to be tested, right? And remember that these are not necessarily cloud computing, because when you're building, as an example, just for that scenario of the vehicle industry, that analytics cannot go and reside in the cloud somewhere. It needs to reside in the vehicle, at the edge, as we call it, right? Because you cannot go and determine whether there's a person in front of the car by sending a video stream. What happens if connectivity is not there, right? And therefore, this is what we call containerization of models, right? You're able to build them. You can maybe consume cloud services to build them, but then you containerize them, with concepts like Dockerization and those kind of things, and you put them within the vehicle. And so this is why, you're going to find a lot of vehicles are going to have edge computing and processing, significant processing within the vehicle. And these are some of the scenarios where I think fintechs and ML play a role. If I come to the area of quantum computing, I would say the advancements, I don't think it's in a 10 to 15 year horizon. I think it's personally in a 5-year horizon. This morning I was reading an article around MIT, piloting a 256 qubit machine. That is a significant development, I would say, in the quantum computing space, right? Now, quantum computing, I would say, to where we are today, it is a significant milestone and disruption in the sense that if I were to scale its processing capability, it is able to compute thousands of times faster and better, than what our current traditional or binary machines are able to do, right? So you would find that its use cases will create step changing. So AI wouldn't just become just normal AI, it will become general intelligence when quantum computers come online. When you look at, for example, encryption, quantum computers, with current encryption protocols that are in place, quantum computers will be able to decrypt them in real time, right? And this is why there's such a significant amount of research that's going into quantum resistance encryption, right? So my take is we as a country need to invest significantly if we want to play a role in the new era of computing that quantum computers will bring along with it. My take is, I don't think quantum computers, it's not commercially viable to be building them as, within organization. These would become shared services. This is why hyperscalers are investing in them, so that, you build these quantum computing capabilities centrally, but you share them across the client base. My take is, right now the market has not fully understood the extent to which quantum computers have the ability to disrupt each of the industries. But one thing's for certain, they will fundamentally change every industry in which they are going to be applied into, based on what some of the white papers we're reading out in the market. We're seeing, quantum computers are unlocking insights, in the sciences that we in the last 100 years have not been able to unlock, right? So if it's doing that at an incubation stage, I think we only yet to realize its impact, at a production stage. So superior to your comment, I think, there's no doubt those countries that are not keeping abreast of this, they're going to be left very far behind once these become mainstream, and I think it would happen, at least in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Mitesh. Appreciate your comments.
Yeah, program director. Maybe yeah. Just. I think there's nothing more I can say on what Mitesh has said. I think he's actually answered that question brilliantly. The only thing I can say to Smme is that there is some capabilities being built to look at this, at quantum computing, and that we are not left behind as a country within the CSIR. So the CSIR facility is looking at quantum computing. So maybe it would be good for you as a futurist to also start engaging with the team that sits at the CSIR.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the guidance.
Thank you. And there's one last question addressed to Mr. Mafu. It says, what's the plan for this? What's the UPS plan for these data centers?
Chair, I think the whole nation was excited when it was announced that companies no longer need a license to produce power up to 100 megawatts for themselves. So I think big data center companies would probably take advantage of that. But the way that they are configured at present is they obviously want to provide 100% uptime. So in addition to the power supply requirements that they sign with Eskom in terms of SLAs as high usage, they also have there are now many new entrepreneurial companies that are focusing just on designing uptime for DCs. And this would include speccing in very high spec lithium batteries, as well as new carrier grade UPS systems. And one of our competitors who sells what we sell, but also sells rectifiers and generators and batteries, is a company called Average. If you go onto their website, you will see that they sell a lot of power backup systems to these DCs. So I think the DCs are all speccing themselves around the unreliability of load shedding, and then they are using whatever is available in the market to make sure that they can maintain 100% uptime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mafu. And another question, direct question from Mr. Leonard. Zuko?
Thank you, Program Director. Mr. Mafu, I'd like your opinion on something that you touched on in your presentation, and this can even go to SEDA as an organization helping with economic transformation. I find that as IT professionals, sometimes we lose ourselves in being too consumed about technology discussions and forget that ultimately we are in business. And as PBICT, I think one of the mission is of economic transformation, yes, using technology. You mentioned the aspect of value chains around the building and the management of data centers. That could be matters around water supply, electricity supply, air conditioning, construction, bricklaying. How do we also instill our thinking in before things are built, that we are on top of what is to come, so that we participate and identify low-hanging fruits, as opposed to wait to the end and we mostly as Black people cry about exclusion? I would like your opinion as a marketer and somebody who I know is a strategist around how can we condition ourselves to position ourselves from opportunities that are coming even in 50 years' time across Africa.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Zuko. That's a very strong question. First of all, we need our national dialogue, as I made in my introductory remarks, must be around building our society for the future, making a deliberate effort, just like China lifted between 300 and 700 million people out of poverty in 30 years. We must have a vision that within our generational mission is to end economic exclusion for our people. The ancestors did what they could, the elders up to 1994. Between then and now, very little has happened. So we need the right national conversation that needs to be guiding our political leaders. And if we see it is lacking, we need to impose on it that we cannot be talking about corruption every single day. We know it's a cancer, and law enforcement must deal with it harshly. In China, the people get shot because it prevents development. But we must be talking about how we reduce inequality and ending poverty. So, and then sector by sector, how do we then get our minister, say Minister Stella Ndabeni, to be able to make it very clear to MTN that if you give a turnkey project of 400 million to Huawei, and Huawei brings in X number of Chinese people who come and do splicing on the corners of Sunning Hill, etc. You are now, I mean, that is now more than just de-risking yourself. You are actually now creating jobs for other people and taking jobs from us. We are not saying you should not do it. You should not buy their switches and their routers and their best practice wireless equipment. You can still do that because unfortunately we are thin on the OME side. But there's a limit to which if you report on your annual financials that you spend 11 billion on telecoms capex, show us truthfully and transparently what is it that you mean, whom you have spent that to. So there should be a lot of political direction and pressure, and both from the right from the top minister, President CR, the minister, the relevant minister, and the relevant authorities who are overseeing the implementation of government policy. It cannot be that Minister Thulas Nxesi says, Minister of Labour, year after year, 76% of senior positions across all sectors are dominated by white men. It's just, I mean, and it just makes us feel paralyzed. And that 4% of the equity on the JSE is black. We are bored with those statistics. We need to know what is the next step. So from us, what we do as a business, we try and immerse ourselves with executive engagements. We speak to, as long before Liquid announces it will reposition itself as Liquid Technologies as opposed to Liquid Telecoms or Liquid Intelligent Technologies. We knew that because we try and speak to as many senior people as possible to find out what is your plan for the future, what is your anticipated budget rollout, what is your strategy, and where can we position ourselves. Now, unfortunately, capitalism is such that I'm doing this for myself, you are doing it for Voima, somebody else is doing for theirs. PBICT is meant to pull us all together and say, share in a very structured manner what is it that we know so that we can, leverage off each other and perhaps make joint submissions where we don't sell batteries and rectifiers, but I know a little bit about that. Maybe somebody else here does. Then I take them along. Somebody else needs a containerized data center. I take them to somebody who knows that. I need a complete bill of material sometimes for a client and I can only sell passive connectivity. Then I can get active from somebody else, and so on and so on. So these are joint ecosystems that we need to be building. At first, it will be chaotic and it will be singular, but over time they will have structure. And then we have got sectoral bodies like the Transformation ICT, the work group for the ICT sector code and so on. They are also meant to play a very strong role in enforcing and reinforcing what we are trying to achieve. Transformation is not something that can only be led by the state or only by the private sector. And we are powerless. If CEDA says I've got land, now I need the private sector to bring in the rest. Who are we talking about? Because 80% of the wealth is in the hands of other people who are owning DFA and CCOM and so on. So we need to be more granular, more organized, more focused, and sharing with each other, to a very large extent what we are doing, and be a bit more transparent and less. It's almost as if we need to be, while we are in a capitalist society, we need to plan it in an uncapitalistic manner, such that we take as many people with us as we can. And I really don't know if there's a best practice example other than what we are trying to achieve through organizations like PBICT. Thank you.
I think through you, Program Director, from our side, when Amazon announced that they're coming to South Africa and they're building 5 data centers, we engaged them because our then minister met with the CEO of Amazon at one of the, I don't know where they met, but they met. And when Amazon made the announcement that they're going to build these data centers in South Africa, the first thing that the then minister said was, you cannot come into our country and you build these data centers without our people benefiting. And in particular, because my ministry is responsible for small business development, I need you to engage so that we can unpack and see how that value chain look like. So, Smme, when you say, when for instance, when we break down the value chain within data centers, we've done that. We know exactly where the opportunities are. Now we then said to Amazon, look, when you build these data centers, let's look at what type of SMMEs we have across the value chain, whether it is bricklayers, racks, steel, everything that needs to go in, water, power, everything. How many SMMEs do we have? Where are you going to build these data centers? And how can we make sure that 90% of the input that goes into building the data center comes from local entrepreneurs? And that we made very clear in the first meeting that we had with Amazon. Right? Things happen. And I think it's maybe my point on this. I agree, transformation should not be accidental. It should be deliberate. But it will also not have, it's going to take us to make difficult and hard decisions and make it without being apologetic about it. And I think sometimes in this country, we're still apologetic about transformation, my view. That's my honest view, it's not a CEDA view. I think we're too apologetic about transformation. We still want to appease here. We still want to say, okay, sorry, here, we can't, we have to include, and for as long as we have that attitude, we will not bring in the transformation that is required. And it's what Smme is saying. We're not going to bring in the transformation that is required. So we need to do it. No one is going to do it for us. We will have to do it ourselves. And yes, unfortunately, we don't have all the money. We would love to have all the money. But with the money that we have, we are really deploying our money to where we think transformation can happen. And that's why we're saying we would want, I can only speak about what sits in my domain. What I have in my domain, I want to make sure that it is led, it is built, it is owned by Black entrepreneurs. Unapologetic about it. And that's why I said, and I even showed, there's the call. There's the call. Entrepreneurs that wants to set up a digital hub must apply. Institutions must apply. So that we lead the conversation, and we also don't just talk. You see, sometimes we have to bring in skin in the game, colleagues, because if we don't bring our own 5 rand, because I bring a 5 rand, but I need another 5 rand to make it a 10 rand so that I can do more. So, and how can we syndicate the balance of 5 rand and not say me and me and me alone? I want this opportunity for myself. And I don't want to share it with a group of other Black people for us to be able to take this thing to market collectively. That's also another problem that we have amongst ourselves. We don't want to work together. And I think there is also another cancer that we need to rid ourselves of. This thing that we don't want to work together, we can't see the opportunity and tackle, like Smme said, tackle that opportunity. You know this, I know this, you know this. Collectively, we have one solution and we take that solution to market and we solve the problem. It's about solving a problem. If you can solve a problem, we make money. But we need to get to a point where we make money collectively and not as individuals. Because as an individual, you become rich and then you forget where you come from. You forget about the people who advocated for you, who lobbied for you, who worked with you, and now you are at the point where you can do things on yourself and you forget about other people. And I think that's the mindset shift and the transformation that we need to make in our own minds.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jafta. I agree with you. Together we can make a difference. And our last question from Mitesh.
Yeah, it's not so much a question, but just a point on Comrade Zuko's comment. I think it's great. It's a great comment, a question. I wouldn't say one needs to take 50 years to get there, right? Building any viable business, is based on demand, right? And you should not be building in a vacuum, right? So in context of South Africa, and I think in any, given what the pandemic has brought in, I think most countries are going to go down the road of using an infrastructure-led economic recovery plan. And what does that mean? So they're going to go back down to the primary sectors, right? Infrastructure development being one of them, right? And look, you would find that there's already many projects that are in flight in the market, what we refer to as strategic mega projects or infrastructure build programs, right? If you go and look at each of these programs, these are in the form of either they are economic zones or they IDZs. These are all solving some specific industry's problem, right? So you have, as an example, the Premier would have spoke about the economic zone, in Gauteng, and there's others, right, across the country. Now it becomes very important to understand what are these programs about, because all of these programs, have some need around technology solutions that need to be brought to the table, right? And if you are able to shape a meaningful value proposition around that, you can then, partner into these programs, because I believe we work in a shared economy, right? And I think, to Comrade Jafta's comment, being able to develop partnerships would create what we would call bankable demand, right? So not that you go and build a solution and then you go and try to find someone that needs to consume the solution. You work within these mega projects and programs to build a solution that is helping them solve the current problem they are solving. And that, in a way, will enable you to have access to market, will enable you to have consumption of solution, right? So I think, the thing is partnerships become key, exploring what, some of these economic recovery plans look like, and solving in that context. And my take is, you should be able to unlock meaningful, I would say, solutions, within the next 5 to 10 years for SMMEs. And if you secure, relationships and partnerships into those mega projects, it would be bankable demand. So you would be able to, shape up a business case, take it to the likes of CEDA, to say, okay, I have a partnership, I'm solving a project in, I don't know, the automotive sector. I've got the partnership with the SEZ. This is how we're going to go to market. This is the 5-year, cash flow statement of that, right? And it makes it viable. Then you have a viable business to go to market. So I think, we shouldn't overthink it. And my take about it is, I don't think the value for the ICT is at the infrastructure level. I think that's, where the small money is going to be spent. I think the value is really at the solution level. Investing IP, knowledge capital, and building out new solutions that land on top of the infrastructure. That is where the main money is going to be made, right? So I think, Comrade Zuko, we shouldn't be looking at 50-year horizons. 5 to 10 years is good enough to build out viable businesses.
No, thank you, Mr. Mtesh. Program Director, if I can just address the comment there. I think it's more about strategic vision. I'm not saying we achieve in 50 years. I'm saying today, how do we identify low-hanging fruits so that we can build legacy businesses like the Huawei's that will last another 50, 100 years. I think that was the context of my comment with regards to 50 years.
Thank you, Comrade Zuko. I don't see any questions, so I think we have reached to now the last item, which will be closed by our Secretary General, Mr. William Ledwaba. But firstly, thank you so much to all our speakers for the insightful presentations. Thank you. Mr. William, you can take over.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you see me? Can you hear me, rather? It's better if you hear.
We can see and hear you.
Oh, is it? Okay, that's good. Yeah, look, thank you very much. This was very, very informative session. And I think this is one of those that we need, to be sober and start engaging from that mind level. And a lot of things have been said that I think we can pick from here. And those initiatives that we're doing, this initiative especially, you know, at least now you're equipped with enough information to say where, who, what. So I think those are the very, very, very great key things that are required. And maybe just to summarize some of the things that have been said, I mean, the issue of funding has been aggressively, you know, spoken about. And as we know that in our country at the moment, you know, you have your CFAs, even CEDA itself, your IDC, your NEF, but there is that lack of radical investment in the ICT industry. And I think the likes of a DTIC, I mean, Charles, we need to do something about that radical investment when it comes to IDC, when it comes to, you know, investing more in those innovations that we're talking about. And not just to invest for the purpose of investing. I mean, I know there are incubation centers that we are creating as internships, which are, you know, I would say they have a short lifespan. And we've done our research to say that we need not to just invest for the purpose of spending money, but to be future, you know, futuristic in a way, you know, to look at what are we investing on and what will be the you know, the long version of it. So that you don't just invest for the 12-month period and then the next thing, that person is going back, sitting at home, still asking for more money. So they need to be that radical ICT investment, either from DTIC department or even from CEDA perspective, because your CFA, your IDC, your NEF are not really working. And I think everyone can attest to that as well. As far as BBB ICT Council is concerned, for example, I mean, which is where I sit, and I can tell you that radically we've been, you know, changing things. We've been a horn or a thorn of some sort even in there to ensure that it's not business as usual. So, you know, the EIP programs that are coming from other investors like even your Amazon, your Microsoft, they have that tangible results that, you know, our people are able to benefit from. And I can tell you that the AMR report will be released soon, and you can see the difference, even if you compare from the previous AMR and latest AMR that are going to be released. It will be much different because, you know, there's a change of things. Things are not longer normal as we've been accepting them to be. And someone spoke about collaboration. I think it was Comrade Tevin. It's key. Even Comrade Mafu Smme, you know, said the same thing. Collaboration and execution. So these platforms like this, you know, and the reason why I appreciate them and the reason why I want us to encourage them as well and nurture them is because we are in a situation where we need to know one another to that level of our expertise, our diversity as well. And the more we utilize them, the more we come together and solve those problems, start those investments. I mean, you want to start a data center tomorrow. Who do you want to speak with? What can CEDA participate? How can they even help you? Whether it's land, investment, value chain, right? They can get all the SMMEs together and say, well, PBICT is starting a data center in Tembisa, and they're looking for all these kind of opportunities, whether it's to go to market. How can government start playing a role in terms of even running their services to those data centers that are established by SMMEs instead of going to Amazon, instead of going to Azure, but support your local based and started, instead of going to Terraco, because now you're even asking, you don't know who's owning Terraco. Dimension Data Entities Data Center, Liquid Intelligent Data Center. But if you have a local based a data center that is owned by SMMEs, DTIC can even run all their applications to the data center, show of force, and radically investing in those initiatives. So that's where we start. And if you don't start, you never see if you can fail or you know, you can succeed as well. So comrades, I think for us, you know, this talks You know, and I know that if the minister likes talking about the 4IR army / that comes with rapid mass development, you know, and also opening access to all these opportunities that are available. We're moving away from that thing of saying we're waiting for CETA to issue an RFP, RFQ, RFA, all those transversal things that are giving you a headache every day. So I will say that encourage all the members, everyone, you know, who's listening, who's in the call as well, to, you know, to start getting together with all those things that we've been discussing long time ago. We've been to GovTech, we've been to ITU, we've been to all these incubation programs, workshops. That time is done. I think today it's a simple thing that we need to do, to say we start doing now. Tomorrow is the past. So Program Director, thank you very much. And on behalf of PBICT, I'd like to thank everyone who has also taken their time and, you know, in this weekend, attended this session and ensure that they share the value, they listen to all the listeners, the presenters who are here today. So thank you very much. And also to our speakers, Comrade Deven Tafta, Mr. Smme Mafu, Mites Chetty, and also Gift and you, Flo. Thank you very much for this session. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now we have come to the end of our session. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Comrade.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, bye.
Thanks for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Guys.